and thus the final chapter of WCW's run on pay-per-view has been closed. I'm John Renton with the retro review of WCW Greed, but I have a question for you all. Should I retro review the entire WCW ECW invasion angle that took place, starting at the last Raw and Nitro simulcast, going head-to-head, and then into Mania 17, and some pay-per-views that were good, bad, indifferent, same with the TV, and some good decisions, like, putting some good talents on there, but then not utilizing them correctly. That was a bad decision. Having Booker T and The Rock have a feud, which is pretty damn good. Stone Cold turning heel, which was not so good, and a whole bunch of other things. Should I retro review the entire invasion angle that should have gone on for a while, and should have maybe been saved for when the big guys came in? Should I talk about these things? Please let me know in the comments, because you guys wanted me to retro review the entire last year of WCW from the reboot episode all the way to the end, and I only got 3 episodes left. I'd love to hear from you guys. But thank you guys very much for watching these shows. I really do appreciate it. It has been fun. I may have a top 10 list of 10 great things from the last year of WCW. May do that. Not sure what I'm going to, exactly include, but I have a few ideas. Lance Storm's going to be one of them. I will say that because he has really shined. So, it is the final WCW pay-per-view. We have a video package hyping up the big main event, Scott Steiner and DDP in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Before we get to that, we got an introduction from Schiavone and Hudson. I will say that Tony Schiavone and Scott Hudson had some really good banter here. Hudson just was a fucking goddamn snarky asshole at times, wasn't he? I mean that in a good way, because he just did not give a fuck, and Schiavone at this point did not give a fuck, and became a bit of a horn dog. Maybe that's where JR got the idea. He said, I'm going to channel Schiavone, but just be extra creepy. Because Schiavone was at least funny about it. JR isn't necessarily funny on AEW television, I mean. But anyway, they are in the Jacksonville Memorial Coliseum. 5,000 people, and the capacity was twice that, because WCW could not draw a fucking house for any fucking bit. They just fucking couldn't. They were having to paper houses. They could, draw in international markets. They did in Australia and in the UK. But honestly, even in their last year, which was actually baffling, but, they were starved for wrestling. They were like, okay, we'll tune out. But Jacksonville, a proud wrestling city, they just couldn't get a decent crowd in. So we have Jett versus Queenie, a match added the day of the pay-per-view. I will say that Queenie was getting more TV attention and, was given more promo time. And while I didn't necessarily care for the character, I thought that he did the best he could with it. Jett shockingly got the win here. I didn't think that he would. This match had no business going 13 fucking minutes. But for a match that was literally just added, they showed up and they did, a good job getting the crowd into it. I will say the crowd were kind of jackasses a little bit later during a really good match that I'll talk about. But Queenie got angry. We get Queenie sucks chants. And we get, Rana off the ropes by Queenie, which was a pretty damn impressive pop. And then a handspring elbow by Jeff, and sunset flip for 2 by Queenie. We get a collision, and then Jett plays, possum, being knocked out and everything. Moves out of the way of a missed elbow. Crash landing the X-Plex, 1, 2, 3. Jett getting the victory, and that was a pretty damn fun opener. That was actually pretty damn good. I thought of doing, much like I did for every WCW pay-per-view main event ranked from worst to best, I thought of doing every WCW pay-per-view opener ranked from worst to best, but I don't know. Would you guys be interested in that video also? Answers in the comments, please. So, we then get Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo versus Kidman and Ray. It's the finals for the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championships. And who would become the inaugural champions? I didn't mind the championships. They kind of reminded me a bit of, like, a lesser AWA World Championship. But the crowd was fired up. These guys went all out. They really did some good shit here. Kidman and Ray dive off the stage when everybody went to the ramp. And, basically, there was, I guess there were just no countouts because the referee could have counted like 50. But it was kind of cool. Skipper hurt his shoulder, on a move, and then that got targeted. And I think he did legit hurt it because even though he was celebrating, he seemed to be favoring that arm. At least celebrating later. We get a BK bomb off the ropes to Skipper. Hot tag to Ray. You get dives outside. Shooting star outside by Kidman because everybody dives. And then near falls, we get Kidman with a splash for 2. And then basement drop kick to Skipper. But then Romeo catches Ray. Wherefore art thou? And Ray gets spiked. 1, 2, 3. You thought it was going to be Kidman and Ray, but no, it was Kid Romeo and Elix Skipper winning the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championships. They would only hold him for a bit and lose him to Kidman and Ray. Now, that was a bit weird. I don't know what the future would have been had WCW been successfully rebooted and Bischoff's group had been able to put things into place. I honestly don't think the reboot would have lasted more than 5 years. I don't think it would have, gone through the 10-year commitment by TBS. I don't think the talent would have lasted that long. At least that's my opinion. Would have been interesting, and the Cruiserweights at least would have been featured. It would have been NWA TNA before NWA TNA was a thing. Though I am glad that we got NWA TNA out of the ashes of WCW and ECW, even though, yeah, I'll just say that for another rant. We get footage of Buff, hiring a cameraman to film everyone and film everything, including Flair in a Hawaiian shirt, because he didn't give a shit, and Animal clearly didn't give a shit. It's like someone rang my bell, but they did it from behind. Animal was literally just paid to do absolutely nothing. He had, 3 matches on television? I don't think he had it. I mean, I don't count the fucking match at Sin because he didn't do anything. He was dressed like a, dollar store Jason Voorhees. But anyway, they go over the plans. Hey, here are the plans. These guys are filming everything, and the fans can't see it, so the wrestlers can't see it, so let's just go over our plans. But nobody could hear Rick over his loud shirt. Stacy is in her Miss Hancock gear, and somewhere one of my friends who likes Stacy Keibler ceased being fine. I'm not going to mention his name right here, but he knows who he is if he happens to be watching this. So she introduces Stasiak, who got a new theme and all in pomp and circumstance. It reminded me of Plant Stasiak, which that wasn't a very good idea. I'm not saying Stasiak was a world champion, but for fuck's sake, you could have not made him a goddamn goof. The announcers run down Stasiak, in particular, not Miss Hancock, but they praised Miss Hancock, but fucking hell, Hudson was really going hard on Stasiak. And it's Stasiak versus Bam Bam Bigelow. This was a feud that they felt was needed on pay-per-view. Stacy will give the star a little rub down. There we go. That's a line on commentary. And Stasiak gets hit in the face and, is on his knees crawling outside and puts his face right there in Stacy's Keibler cookie, if you will. And Scott Hudson, this is so bad. Scott Hudson says, hey, wait a second, can we show that? Shivani. Well, if my face was hurt, then that's where I'd want to put it. God damn it. Just fucking hell. It's like, oh, come on, Tony. That was the best part of this match, because this match was bad. We had diving headbutt for 2. Bam Bam Bigelow lost his last match, by the way, on U.S. pay-per-view via hairspray that Stacy Keibler tossed to Stasiak while the referee was distracted, and then neckbreaker 1, 2, 3. He lost via hairspray. They are fighting over shampoo. Yes, I will be retro-reviewing Mania 18. We then get footage of Miller and Miss Jones. She wants to be at ringside. He says no, but then she shows up anyway. We then get Skipper and Romeo celebrating and strapping it on each other backstage. The titles, I Run a Clean Show. And then Storm does the usual promo. The anthem gets interrupted by laughter. It's laughter from the people realizing, shit, we're pulling the plug on a wrestling company and kicking people out of their jobs. Wait, that's just Jamie Kellner, the fucking goddamn jackass. Storm and Mike Awesome versus Conan and Hugh Morris. They thought that this was a match that deserved over 10 minutes. That's adorable. And I like Storm and I like Mike Awesome. Conan's decent, even by this point. Hugh Morris was never really all that good. It belonged on Nitro. I don't really think it necessarily belonged on a grand pay-per-view, even though grand pay-per-views were a thing of the past in WCW history by this fucking point. So we get a running awesome on 1, 2, 3. That's about it. That's really it. This wasn't much of a match. It was very sloppy, too. Footage of Dusty and Dustin. They censored the word ass. This is on pay-per-view. Was this WWE Network call? Because they include a lot of other words on there. Why would WCW censor the word ass? It's pay-per-view. Did the companies not want Dusty to say the word ass because they didn't want to think about Dusty's ass? If everybody's thinking about Dusty's ass, okay, because you're going to be by this point. If you're not, you are going to be by the end of this review. In particular because they kept talking about Dusty's ass throughout this show. Dusty ordered 240 burritos, or was it 40 burritos? I don't remember what. For the Kiss My Ass match, because he's going to fart in everybody's general direction. Mother was a hamster, and their father smelled of elderberries. Is there someone else we can talk to? Why, yes. Well, Buff Bagwell's talking to Rick Steiner, so that's how we're going to do this. It's like, and then O'Hare and Palumbo talk strategy, so to speak. They actually just yell. And then Hudson, Hudson was just all over verbally the dancers, the sugar dancers, for Sugar Shane Helms. To be fair, a couple of them were pretty hot, so I don't blame him necessarily. Schiavone talks about Dusty's burrito eating. Because at this point, what the fuck else is Schiavone going to talk about? Helen versus Chavo for the Cruiserweight title. Chavo used a headlock and used a lot of, like, not stalling tactics, but used a lot of groundwork and worked on Helms and was, like, going to beat him down because Helms had put himself through the fucking ringer after getting added to the six-way four corners elimination match at Super Brawl Revenge. No, really, that's what they fucking called it because Kidman was taken out, so Helms took advantage and won the Cruiserweight Championship and then been putting together win after win after win and being kicked out of 3 count. When 3 count then went back to Moore and Courageous, who were not on this pay-per-view. Because nobody wanted to see Evan Courageous on pay-per-view. I don't think Evan Courageous wanted to see Evan Courageous on pay-per-view. Well, he wanted to see himself in the mirror, and that's about it. I'm not a fan of Evan Courageous, in case you can't tell. So, Chavo dominated this for the first half, hit a dive outside. Helms finally comes back. He gets stopped with a bit of an inverted DDT. And then he sends Chavo outside, who hits his butt on the apron, the hardest part of the ring. Not Chavo's butt, but the apron. I mean, Chavo's butt is hard in the apron. I don't know. He's hard-headed with how he feels politically, but I digress. They start chanting boring. This is where I'm glad the Jacksonville Jaguars have underachieved for a number of years because fuck this goddamn crowd. What the fuck? This match wasn't boring. I'm not saying it was the most high-energy thing ever, but it fit the story because Chavo was going to do everything he could to try to out-wrestle Helms, and Helms was going to come back because he wanted to prove that he had Chavo's number. And he did hit a vertebreaker out of nowhere, so after Chavo dominated about 80% of this, but it wasn't boring, vertebreaker, 1, 2, 3, new champion. Helms very motivated and very happy, and he's celebrating, and then we get footage of Jared talking to Flair. We ain't kissing no ass. And then we go to Booker saying, hey, Rick Steiner, the time for talking is over. And then he talks a little more and says he'll win the U.S. Championship. Guess the time to talk wasn't over. Totally Buff versus Palumbo and O'Hare, WCW Tag Title match. But first, Totally Buff talk, forever, saying they ended Goldberg's career because this was supposed to build up to the reboot of Goldberg coming back maybe in May or June. I think the May pay-per-view is going to be The Big Bang. And there was a theory about why they were going to call it that. Like The Big Bang Theory being an absolute ass-tacular show. I hated it. If other people liked it, that's fine. Anyway, they keep talking forever. Well, this match won't take us long. You're right, it won't. Because it was over in about a minute. Luger accidentally hits Bagwell with his lowered forearm. 2 Shanton bombs, 1 to Luger, 1 to Bagwell, 1, 2, 3, and double cover. That's it. That was a changing of the guard, as Hudson said. We just witnessed a changing of the guard, which is true, because that's actually what should happen. That's how you get people over. They were setting up the pieces, and then I think it was the next night that, during that Nitro where Bischoff said next week may be the final Nitro because the deal fell through, which is a shame. Just because I would have liked to have seen what happened. But anyway, Totally Buff still laid out after the hype packages for, after Scott does curls in the shower while his freak watches, though with, how she looked at that point, I don't think any wetness could have gotten through all the Botox she had. And then they do a video package on Canyon and Ernest Miller. And then Totally Buff is still laid out in the ring. Bagwell, oh no, the bad neck, but then he gets up, and that's pretty much it. Not sure what that was about. Canyon has a new entrance, Smoke, and he comes through the stage. Cool. Smoke. Not now, Terry. Miller with Miss Jones versus Canyon, who had an injured hand. He had a cast after that beatdown that he gave M.I. Smooth because M.I. Smooth kept coming back, and I think Canyon got hurt because M.I. Smooth did hit him with a few things. Or they said that maybe Canyon actually hurt himself. So this match wasn't all that great. Granted, it's an Ernest Miller match, so it's much more character-based than anything because he wasn't really a great wrestler. But Canyon tries to go after Miss Jones on the stage. Miller attacks, and we get some that. Miller comes back with some kicks. Hits a high kick for 2. Boston Crab by Canyon. Feetliner, foot on the rope. Cast shot for 2. He had something lowered in his cast. Miss Jones is trying to get the referee's attention. Eventually, Miller holds Canyon. She hits a high kick accidentally on Miller, and she's freaked out, but then decides she's going to face down Canyon. Then she high kicks him. Feeliner, 1, 2, 3, and Miller gains revenge for Miss Jones, who gained her own revenge. And then Canyon flatlines Miller. M.I. Smooth comes down to run everybody off, or at least run Canyon off, because he's seemingly okay after that beatdown 6 days before. He was hurt after the Thunder episode where he got his limo tipped over, and was dragging his body out there. And then just 6 days after that beatdown, all those chair shots to the head, he's fine. Running down, he's fine. Logic. Anyway, camera catches Bagwell and Luger arguing. I told you not to film this. You told me to film everything. Bagwell not understanding his own rules. And then we get more burrito stuff. My eyes are watering, says Dustin. I can't do any stretching while the eyes are watering. Schiavone enjoys making Hudson uncomfortable while talking about the burritos, and he says, we just watched Dusty eat 40 burritos, and you want me to talk about something else? Schiavone didn't give a shit at this point. And then we saw Booker T versus Rick Steiner for the U.S. Championship. Schiavone says, we are going to watch the dog-faced gremlin disrobe on the floor. Hudson, I hope not. You know what I meant. Yeah, I know what you meant. They just didn't. They were having fun because what the fuck? What the fuck else are you going to do with this? Rick lays into Booker, tosses him into the front row. We get a lot of wrestles because Rick Steiner at this point couldn't be bothered to care. Ref bump. German to Rick Steiner, but Shane Douglas is upset. He's upset at Rick Steiner. He still has a cast on his hand. And he hits Rick Steiner in the head. Bookend, 1, 2, 3, new champion. Shane Douglas is a babyface in 2001, and I don't know what to fucking do with my life. So, we cut to Animal Face, finding Buff laid out, and Luger says, well, isn't that convenient? That's a big word for Lex Luger, who's apparently college educated, but could never cut a goddamn promo to save his life. Jeff Jarrett and Ric Flair with Animal versus Dusty and Dustin. Kiss my ass match. Flair said, I won't wrestle. And then he decides to wrestle. And then Charles Robinson, who's Ric Flair's referee, handpicked all that bullshit in 1999. Charles Robinson facing off against Gorgeous George on pay-per-view. The stripper that Randy Savage met. Not the actual, Gorgeous George, as hilarious as that would have been. This was just Dustin and Jarrett doing a lot of work. And then Dusty and Flair getting, the glory doing comedy to a huge pop because they're Dusty and Flair, even at that point. Even with Flair having not wrestled in a number of months, and Dusty wrestling in the sense that he was in a wrestling ring trying to do wrestling maneuvers, but it wasn't nearly what Dusty even was 10 years prior. So, even 7 years prior. To be fair, that, with all the bumps that he took and the illness and the issues he had physically, I'm amazed he could do anything. But also, oh no, would the burritos start kicking back? Would they, oh, that dumpster burrito is, fighting back on me. Good old Torgo. So, you figured 4 by Jeff on Dustin. Dusty does some elbows and a big 1 for 2. Low blow to Dusty. And then Dustin cradles Flair really badly, 1, 2, 3. And then Jarrett takes 1 for the team, kissing Dusty's ass, which he just barely rubs in his face. And I think Flair ends up kissing the donkey's ass on the next Nitro. Because wrestling. Why the fuck not? Anyway, DDP versus Scott Steiner, Falls Count Anywhere match for the world title. Okay, so it's all up in the air. Bischoff's group, the deal falls through, and the company's gonna, pull the plug, or the company's gonna have the plug pulled on it in 8 days. Vince McMahon's gonna buy the company in 5 days. Yet they still bring Michael Buffer in for the main events. And they wonder why they kept losing money. Michael Buffer added goddamn nothing to anything after 97. I understood to 97. After that, they didn't need to keep bringing him in. He didn't add anything. The let's get ready to, all that, whatever. Cool. It's a gimmick. It's not a very good gimmick because it got very one note and very annoying. So, DDP goes to the crowd. Scott Steiner does his usual entrance, and they start this hot, and it was Falls Count Anywhere. They were doing a whole lot of shit. This was a hell of a way to go out as far as the final pay-per-view main event. You can check out that entire 8-part list, by the way, every WCW pay-per-view main event ranked from worst to best on the countdown list if you would like. It's a lot, but I had a whole lot of fun ranting about the bad stuff and praising the really good stuff. Oh boy, there was some really good stuff. Back to this. They go into the crowd after a few minutes. Pedro Morales was on the Spanish commentary team. Cool. I like Pedro Morales. Hell of a goddamn worker all over the place. Terrible that he passed away. So Scott takes a crutch from a fan and then hits him with it, and then they tore the place down almost literally because they were beating each other up into all this stuff, the walls and trash cans. They were just tearing each other up, doing some covers, and then Scott takes a record from a fan and bashes it over DDP's head. Why did somebody have a record? Who throws a record, honestly? Was it a record of the last time that WCW took any money in and turned a profit? Because it seemed like a while ago, Because the last time they took in a profit was, guess what, sometime in 98. Because they lost money in 99 and they lost an assload of money in 2000. I wonder how much money they lost in 2001, even though they were only in business for a few months. So, Medeja inserts herself, not realizing that her place was not in wrestling. It wasn't. I'm sorry. She was there to just be a body, to just, I guess, look good. Whatever. If they were pushed up anymore, they would have been, like, knocked her teeth out. So anyway, Scott targets the back and beats Paige down. We get a cutter, and then suddenly Rick comes down, pulls the referee out because Rick was actually under the ring. So he didn't have to come down. He's just like, haha, I'll scurry here and woof woof and pull the ref out. And then Paige dives on Rick. Belt shot to Paige's head. And he's bleeding a lot, and he bled a lot for that short time. Recliner, DDP fights the ropes. But then we get the pipe, Steiner's lengthy pipe, all over DDP's ribs and back. And then the recliner, and he's bleeding, and that's it. Who is left for Scott Steiner to take on? Again, only the people that are trying to buy the company, and Scott Steiner ain't strong enough to do that, or ain't big, or bad, or booty, or daddy enough to do that. Anyway, yeah, this was an interesting show. It was an interesting way to go out on pay-per-view. Not the greatest, but had its moments. And then the company will be sold in a few days. Hooray! Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.